Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast, episode 21, with the founder of Speaking Your Brand, Carol Cox. The Connected Yoga Teacher was created so that you can easily connect to knowledge, inspiration, and a community of supportive yoga teachers as we hear about a variety of topics from yoga teachers and other professionals. When I left my first 200-hour yoga teacher training, I remember feeling like I was alone in the wilderness of yoga entrepreneurship. And that feeling still comes back to me here and there. With the consulting work that I do, I was hearing the same struggle from other yoga teachers. So this is why I wanted to create a place where you can feel connected as a teacher between the teacher trainings, classes, and workshops that you are taking. I teach weekly private and group yoga classes in Ontario, Canada. So I understand the challenges that yoga teachers face. I'm also a mother of 3, so I understand the need to kind of balance work and life. I'm super passionate about being a yoga entrepreneur and helping those who want to create a successful yoga business. To me, this means having the time to enjoy life, loving what I do, and getting paid well for it. Today, I'm so excited to introduce you to Carol Cox, who is a speaker, a podcast host, university educator, and a TV political analyst. Carol has presented at dozens of live conferences and events. She's given over 100 online webinars, and she's on TV as a political analyst. So she really gets what public speaking and sharing your message is all about. Carol helps women entrepreneurs find, create, and deliver their signature talk to help grow their business. She's passionate about in-person speaking engagements. Today, you're going to hear why she thinks this can really be a big element to a marketing strategy for yoga entrepreneurs. In Carol's words, presenting before an audience positions you as an expert in your field, showcases your brand, and invites follow-up and referrals, which leads to more sales. So we can all use this in our yoga business, and we don't often hear this side of things in a traditional yoga teacher training. As you guys know, there's usually just a little business practice unless you've taken a specific course in this. Also, you are really going to want to make sure that you check out the show notes for this episode. Visit theconnectedyogateacher.com, look for episode 21 under podcast, because Carol has provided all of us with an amazing PDF. This outlines the framework that she's going to talk about today. And in there, she's also offering all of our Connected Yoga Teacher listeners a free 30-minute strategy session with her. And as you're going to hear in this call today with Carol, this is really her gift, her superpower. We got chatting, and right away, she started coaching me on my own core message, story, and brand. Today's episode has been brought to you by the consultation calls that I offer to yoga teachers. If we've never worked together before, an initial consultation call is 90 minutes. We cover 3 topics of your choice. This could be a challenge that you're facing, something that you really want to work on and dive into, goals that you're setting. Then I send out an email that same week with the audio recording of the call, because we do it via Zoom, and a full summary of what goals we set, any links or points we talked about. That is pretty unique in a consultation call. After that initial consultation call, I offer 2 packages for people that I've worked with previously. There's a 6-month package and a 12-month package. And this is where we talk at minimum once a month. This is where we really stay on track, and I'm your accountability partner. I check in with you around the goals that we set. I offer tools, tips, and insight. Many of the yoga teachers that I've worked with say that I really think of unique ways to market yoga classes, workshops, and courses. This is my superpower. The consultation packages are really popular right now, so much that I actually need to put a limit on the number of yoga teachers that I can work with one-on-one. So if you are interested in this, make sure that you go to the Work With Me tab on theconnectedyogateacher.com. Alrighty, Connected Yoga Teachers, let's dive into today's interview and see how we can clarify our core message with Carol's help. Welcome, Carol, to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Shannon. I am thrilled to be here.
So I know Carol through a business group. We're part of the Nest, the Biz Chicks Nest with Natalie Ekdahl. And I have a lot of questions for you, Carol, mainly around, kind of how to get my message out there as a yoga teacher. So I'm excited to dive into that. But first I wanted to ask you, have you ever practiced yoga?
Yes, I have what I would call an on again, off again relationship with yoga. So I've been doing it for about the past 6 or 7 years, and I can jump into a yoga class and have no problem. I go through periods. I think I'm the same way with meditation, where I'll do it a lot for say 3 months, and then I'll take a break for 6 months, and then I'll come back in for 3 months. I guess it's maybe just part of my personality.
Yeah. Do you have any yoga poses that you really love to do or ones that you really dislike?
So the ones that I really like, I actually love pigeon pose, which I know is like kind of crazy for some people, but I'm also quite competitive. And I think that's where sometimes I get into trouble with yoga classes because I really want to be able to like push myself. I'm more competitive with myself than competitive with other people. So I want to see how far I can go. So pigeon pose, because it's challenging, I'd like to really kind of like dig in there and really get that stretching in the hips.
Yeah, that's a good pose. I love it. I love that you just call it out like I'm a little bit competitive with myself because my brother he does yoga as well. And we joke around because when he first started, he said, I'm going to be the best yoga person in that room. I'm going to do it. I'm doing yoga so well. Yeah, he laughs at it himself.
Which is kind of not the point of yoga,
not at
right?
all. Not at all. But I think it's fun to acknowledge that sometimes that's in us, whether it's with ourselves or looking over at the next person. Yeah.
Right.
We're going to chat today about really having a message and public speaking. And I'm wondering if there are any mindful practices that you thread in that, maybe yoga, meditation. You already said meditation. Like, have you always had an easy time doing large speaking engagements?
Well, the word easy is an interesting word. So I would say that I've always enjoyed doing it ever since I was in school. So even middle school and high school, I remember I would get up in front of class and give a presentation, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the research part of putting the presentation together and then getting up there and presenting it. So I've always enjoyed doing that, but I always get nervous doing that, which I think is a normal response. I listen to other podcasts of people who are professional speakers. These are speakers who speak 300 times a year.
Right.
It's unbelievable. And they say they still get nervous right before they walk on stage. And I think there's a difference between having, say, a fright, like being terrified of speaking, versus just having those little butterflies in your stomach. And so my meditation practice definitely helps getting centered with the breath and having a really clear intention of how I want to serve the audience that I'm about to speak to. So understanding what it is that they need and how I can be of best service to them.
Right. I see this like everywhere I look on your website, I see all kinds of clarity around your core message. And I would like to see if we can bring that to the yoga teachers out there, just to really define what their core message is, how they might do that, how they can introduce themselves so that they kind of stand out. So where would we begin with that?
Sure. Yeah. This is obviously something that's a core of what I do with my clients, is to figure out what is that central message that has really run throughout their entire life and that they want to convey to the people that they want to work with. Because the mistake that I see a lot of people doing, whether they're entrepreneurs, yoga teachers, health coaches, life coaches, business coaches, whatever they are, is that they feel like they need to be all things to all people, that everyone could benefit from their message. And yes, in the grand scheme of things, like in abstract, there are probably millions of people out there who could benefit from your message, but you're only able to reach so many of them. We don't have the budgets of big Fortune 500 companies, so we can't plaster our message over the entire world or the entire country. So we have to really understand, who is it that we can best help? And so what I like to start with is think about for yourself as a yoga teacher. Let's really focus on them, since that's your audience. Is what has been your journey through yoga? What brought you into yoga? Was there a certain incident that happened? Was there a turning point? Was there something going on in your life where yoga became an answer for you? And then think about your journey and how that yoga journey has shaped who you are today. And then that's how then you can relate your story to the other people who are listening. And then those people will see themselves in your journey, and then they will both be able to resonate with you.
So if I used myself as an example, I started doing yoga as a girls' night out. My son, I think, was 2 at the time. And it was really a chance to get out and kind of do something for myself. So that would be where my story begins. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, that would be one of the different elements of your story. So you had a young child, you were looking for a bit of me time. You maybe even have wanted to reclaim your own identity that was separate from just being a new mom.
Right. It's interesting because then I continued on. I mean, we did it as a night thing. My girlfriends moved on. They were like, okay, let's do this other thing now. And I just stuck with yoga because I felt like I was exactly what you said, reclaiming like my own identity again. Like, oh, there I am. I was just the mom back home.
Right. And so your friends didn't. They may have found other outlets, not yoga, but there was something about yoga, whether it was the rituals, the historical traditions, the spiritual traditions in yoga. There was something in there that really appealed to you. So then, Shannon, I would ask you, if you look back to what you were like when you were growing up as a little girl, what did you like to do? What were some of your favorite hobbies and activities?
I was usually really active. I did sports. I was outside a lot. I like to dig in the dirt, just kind of go off by myself exploring, I guess.
So you like to be active, and so yoga is an active part of that. So you probably were seeking that when you were first gravitated towards yoga. And do you tend to like rituals and traditions?
I do.
Okay, so this is where we would start mining kind of these different elements of who you are and what brought you to where you are today with your yoga. And then I would ask you, so the yoga teachers that you're currently helping in your business, what commonalities do they have? Whether it's certain mindsets, certain attitudes, certain places where they're at in their own journey. Do you see anything that's in common with them?
Well, in 2 different areas. So maybe because I kept finding my way into quite a specific niche. So now I teach yoga for pelvic health. And so I mostly work with women. And I feel like I mostly work with women who are 40, 50 plus. Is that what you mean by commonality?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of the time I do work with women who have had children.
Okay, so now that we're seeing what these common traits are, and so you've already said that you have almost organically or naturally been niching down because those are the people who've been coming to you, but they also must see something in you regarding what it is that you're helping them with. So as far as we had started this part of the conversation about yoga teachers and their message and niching down and how they can convey what it is that they do. And so how I like to start that is with an I help statement. So as a yoga teacher, and this would apply to you too, Shannon, as a yoga entrepreneur, is you would first identify who it is that you're helping. So who is that audience, that niche audience that you most want to help? What are you helping them to do specifically? So something related to their pelvic health, it sounds like in your case. And then what is it? And then as you're helping them to do that, what is the outcome or the benefit that they're getting in the end? And that's the really key part. Because a lot of times we hear people say, well, I helped so-and-so with this, but then they stop too soon and they don't continue on to, okay, so what's the outcome at the other end?
Right.
So for the people that you're helping with their pelvic health through yoga, what is the benefit that they're getting at the end?
Right. So let me dig into that a little bit. I get what you're saying because I say to other people and to myself that I help. I say women. In my mind, I say women, but I'd like to dig in a little bit more to the niche because already there's a bit of fear because I think, well, I don't want to exclude the men, but I help them to maintain and improve their pelvic health. But you're right, there's the second piece of that. And I think it's so that they can enjoy life. Like they can enjoy life. There's a lot of women who have incontinence issues and or pelvic girdle pain or pain in their pelvis, and they're living with it in silence.
So I would say enjoying life, and I would get even more specific than that.
Okay.
So I would say something like, so I help women who are experiencing pelvic health issues feel relief or feel less pain so that they can go have an active lifestyle. They can go do whatever it is that they want to do that the pelvic health issues are otherwise preventing them to do. So enjoying life is like the umbrella, but then what are those specific tangible pieces underneath enjoying life?
Oh, this is good, Carol. You're so good at this.
Thank you.
You're gifted at this. So what happens when that fear comes up of niching down? Like, I'm okay now with the pelvic health, where I used to say, oh, I teach prenatal and I teach restorative and I teach active and moderate yoga. I was kind of all over the map with it because I wanted to bring in more students. And my fear of niching down used to be that then I would have less students, which is not what's happened. So what do you do when you work with people and you start to niche down? How do you help them get through that?
Yes, it seems very counterintuitive but it's really true, as you've seen yourself, Shannon, with your business, that the more you niche, I guess I guess if you're Canadian, you say niche because it's more of the French pronunciation.
I think it's just me, actually.
So the more that you niche down, the more that people, the right people, the people you know you can help the most, will find you and be attracted to you. Because think about it this way. If you just have a message, whether it's on your website or at your yoga studio, and you say that this yoga is for everyone, then it almost becomes for no one. Because if I'm reading that message and I'm interested in yoga, but I'm not really sure, I'm asking 20 questions in my head as a potential client or potential student. I'm asking, well, is this a fast-paced yoga? Is this for athletes? Is this for beginners? Is this for people who are runners? Is this for people who are more spiritually inclined, who want yoga with the other asanas part of it? Like what? So they start asking all these questions, and then they start basically putting up objections and finding ways that this place is not the right place for them because there's too many unanswered questions for them. But if your message is, I don't want to say middle-aged women. I'm in my 40s, so but I help women in their 40s and 50s with pelvic health issues. All of a sudden, if I fit that profile, I say, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. The only next question is, okay, so how does this work and how do I start?
Right. Exactly. And that's what I found when I started putting it out there, because I used to teach gentle yoga and then I would introduce it into the class and not really specify that all the time. And then once I was like, you know what, this is what I'm really passionate about, put it out there, and my class numbers skyrocketed.
Right. And I have found this also with my own business. So when I first started Speaking Your Brand back in 2015, I knew that I had to have a niche. I knew that I couldn't just say, well, I help anyone with their presentations and their speaking. Because again, who is everyone? Is it corporate executives and big companies? Is it entrepreneurs just getting started? Is it coaches? Is it people with product, like the actual tangible products that they're selling? Is it nonprofits? Is it people doing TED Talks? Like it could be anyone of those, but you see how difficult it would be for me to do marketing if my audience was that broad. I wouldn't even know where to start with marketing that message. So I decided that I was going to focus on women entrepreneurs. So those who are in the first probably 1 to 3 or 4 years in their business, but really those entrepreneurs who are very purpose-driven and values-oriented and heart-centered, because I want to work with women entrepreneurs and organizations that have at their core that they want to make a difference in the world. And the world could be a microcosm of their community or just of their clients, or it could be something bigger than that. But I really just felt strongly that if they weren't purpose-driven, then it wasn't going to be a good match for me. And I have found that because I'm very clear about that, those women are coming to me and getting referred to me from other people.
Right. So I was just having a conversation with a yoga teacher the other day, and I kept hearing her say, like, what brought her to yoga was that she had anxiety, and now she helps a lot of people with anxiety. And we were working on what kind of yoga she wanted to be teaching. And finally, I just asked her, like, what about yoga for anxiety? Helping people. And that fear came up again. She was like, well, I don't want to disclude people who don't have anxiety.
And if there's someone who comes along who doesn't have anxiety, but for whatever reason just likes her or likes the location or likes something about it, they may join in. But if she feels like she can best serve the people who are experiencing anxiety, think about that. They now have a trusted place that they can go to be around other people who understand what they're experiencing.
Right. So yoga teachers use this, and you have a really great formula. Can you share that with us?
Yes. And actually, I have a free PDF that the listeners can download as well. So if those listeners out there are doing yoga right now as you're listening, or driving or washing the dishes, you don't have to pause and write this down. So the link to get the free PDF, if they go to speakingyourbrand.com speakingyourbrand.com/connected yoga, all together, all one word, speakingyourbrand.com/connected yoga. They can get this and it will be in the PDF. So the formula is I help, and then whoever your target audience is, do this thing. So whatever you're specifically helping them to do, so they can get these specific results or benefits.
That's great. Thank you so much. I will definitely put a link in our show notes to that as well. There is amazing content on your website, by the way, and your podcast. And here's another thing that yoga teachers are often speaking in front of a class, but what about going out and speaking more in public? So I listen to your podcast and I don't really have an intention of speaking at a large thing like a TED Talk, but I do occasionally get asked to speak at different events. And I feel like that's almost an untapped thing that yoga teachers are not doing. Like yoga teachers could be speaking more for healthcare professionals, say. So how do they start to find those speaking engagements? And then what tools would they use?
Yes, I love this. So I have been a tech person for almost 20 years. So I started off as a web and database programmer back 15, 16 years ago. So I've always lived online. But as we've been getting more and more bombarded with our mobile phones and notifications and social media, I have really been finding myself doing more things locally in my community and in person. And speaking engagements are a great way to do that. And especially as yoga teachers, you already have developed a way and a presence of being in front of a group of people. So I would say absolutely to go out there and do some speaking engagements, because I think as yoga teachers also, you probably enjoy the energy of a group of people in person. And I know that I enjoy that as well. And so as far as finding speaking engagements, there are probably lots of places in your local community. So hooking up with healthcare providers, as you mentioned, Shannon, the local libraries, local groups, even women's business groups. So just recently, I live in Orlando, Florida. We have a wonderful women's business group here. And last month, they had a woman come in and do a talk on yoga in your business and in your life. It was called Off the Mat. And so it's talking about how yoga doesn't just apply to what you're doing on your mat in the yoga class, but also how can you use it in your business and your life. So there's a lot of ways that you can go out there and do speaking engagements. I would say that have a clear understanding of what your personal and your professional goal is for doing those speaking engagements. You can certainly do it just because you enjoy doing it and you want to give back to the community, but also know that it does take up time and energy to do them. You have to put the presentation together. You have to reach out to the people. You have to go and deliver it. So you want to make sure that there is a clear alignment with what your goals are for doing the speaking engagements.
So you wouldn't just, someone approaches you, you would really look at it like, is this my target audience? Am I going to see more students come to my class or sign up for a workshop or a teacher training?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's good to even think about libraries. I hadn't thought about that. Are there any tools that people would use to kind of craft that speech that they're going to do? Would you use the same one for different places?
Yeah, this is a really good question, Shannon. So my short answer is yes. And then you try to use the same one. And I call it a signature talk, because what happened to me when I was doing a lot of speaking engagements for my web development business, which I don't do much anymore, but back 5 or 6 years ago, is that people would ask me to come speak at their conferences and events. And I would create a brand new presentation from scratch on a different topic every time, because I love creating presentations. So I just said, I'm interested in learning this. I might as well research it and create a presentation. But it was a lot of work. I mean, hours and days before each one. So I wisened up and realized that I needed a signature talk that I could use. And also then having a signature talk, you become known for that one thing that you do. So when someone says, I need a yoga teacher who specializes in pelvic health, they automatically know Shannon Crow is the person that I need. So that's why you want a signature talk. And there are ways that you can have a framework or an outline of your talk and then repurpose it for different lengths of time, different formats, and tweak it for different audiences. So I have my signature talk. I have a 8-minute version of it. I have a 20-minute version, a 45-minute version, an hour-long keynote version, a half-day workshop version. It's all based on the same thing, but I just add and subtract based on how much time I have and who the the audience is.
That's fantastic. One question around that. If you, like, say, for instance, I went to talk with the Women's Institute group and they wanted to know about yoga for pelvic health. It was a 30-minute talk. And then how much promotion do I do of my classes then in that? Other than I took some business cards with me, they asked me where my classes were. How much promotion is within the talk?
Yeah, so there is a way to do it that is very natural and not icky sales.
Right.
Because I'm not the sales, like the slick salesperson. And when I first started doing this a couple years ago with this business specifically, I kept hearing from other speaking coaches that I was looking at this phrase, sell from the stage, where they kept advocating that when you're doing a speaking engagement, you should be focused on selling from the stage and getting people to buy. And it just automatically rubbed me the wrong way because no one wants to go listen to an infomercial, especially if you paid for a conference or an event. That's the last thing you want. You want to learn something that's going to be valuable and useful to you. So my mantra is very much teach from the stage instead of sell from the stage. And Shannon, it sounds like that's what you did. But obviously you want the people in the audience to know what you do and how they can work with you further. So the way that I help my clients structure their presentation is that towards the end of the presentation, we leave the audience with their next step. So what is the next thing that they should do based on what they've just learned? So ideally what you want to do is one thing that they can go do on their own without you. So you've empowered them with knowledge and information, and then you're helping them say, okay, here's the next step that you can take on your own. But then you can say, and if you'd like to go deeper and work with me further, here's a way that you can do this. I do a weekly yoga class on this, or I help other yoga teachers with their businesses, and you can sign up for a strategy session. So there's a way that you can do that. You can also offer a complimentary session. It depends on exactly what you're doing. So maybe a complimentary pass to a yoga class, or maybe if it's business related, a complimentary strategy session.
Right. So for example, that teacher who is working with people specifically with anxiety, then she could say, here's one tool that I really like to use, and then this is how to work with me further.
Exactly.
That's terrific. Any other tips or tools in making an interesting introduction for yoga teachers or speaking so that it really shares who they are as a yoga teacher?
The most important thing really is stories, because as humans, that's how we relate and that's how we learn is through storytelling. And that's what we've been doing for thousands of years. And when we've gotten into business, especially over the past 100 years, we really have forgotten this idea of storytelling. We've dissociated business from story, and we've reserved story just for entertainment like movies and books. But what I do with my presentation framework is I use the 3-act structure that we're also familiar with stories and with books and movies. And then I also pull from Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey. If you've seen the Star Wars movies, then that's the hero's journey in action on the big screen. Yeah. And so with the presentation framework, we're walking the audience through a large story arc, and then stories interspersed and weaved in between. So doing this well is not easy in the sense that it takes work and it takes effort. And that's why it's helpful to have someone to do it with you. But there is a framework to go through. And in that PDF that I mentioned earlier that has that branding formula, it also has this presentation framework outline in there as well.
Okay, that's great. I love it that it's Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which I think a lot of yoga teachers know this already and have studied it. And also, you touched on that this is the personal brand as well, because this is a buzzword, and I hear it a lot from yoga teachers, I want to create my personal brand. So you're saying this starts with the stories, and that's where we started today. Like, what was my story coming into yoga?
Exactly. And really, what I was asking you for was part of that hero's journey. So what were those turning points for you that led you from your ordinary world, what you were doing, into that extraordinary world where you wanted to be? And what were those obstacles that prevented you from getting there? And that's really what you're helping your audience to do in your presentations. And so that is really what this, and then the stories, because again, people relate to your personal story. We can't try to pretend we're someone that we're not, because our personality and who we are is going to come through one way or another. So we might as well embrace it and say, like I said earlier, I tend to be competitive with myself. That's part of who I am, but it's also a strength that I can use, because then I can help my clients see certain things that they can't see for themselves.
Right. That's fantastic. Okay, this dives into something that I am just itching to ask you. Knowing you, just listening to your podcast, it's really easy to see that you are very present in politics all around. So if anyone's following you, you're really open about how you lean politically. And I love that. Like, I really resonate with that. Where is that line as a yoga teacher, as any professional, where you can share your beliefs, or is there a risk in that?
So I would say it's very much a personal decision. And what I do is not what I necessarily would recommend or tell everyone else to do. But like, as I just mentioned earlier, that your personality is going to come out one way or another. It's very hard to hide. So I have been involved in politics for the past 15 years. And I was chairperson of the Democratic Party in the county that I lived in back about 10 years ago or so. And I had a business related to providing software to Democratic candidates and organizations. So it's a very much a part of who I am, and really it's part of my business brand and my personal brand. And during election seasons, I serve as a Democratic political analyst on TV news. So I get hired to share my opinion. And so I really, even if I wanted to, I really would, it just wouldn't feel right for me to hide who I am now. I really don't even use Facebook much. So I'm not on my personal Facebook, like sharing articles and blasting things and, like being angry and things like that. That's not who I am. I will retweet things and post articles on Twitter once in a while, because I feel like that's a different space than a personal Facebook profile. Yeah. But I'm very nuanced. That's just who I am. But I will tell you, Shannon, that even with speaking your brand, which you would think I should be apolitical or I shouldn't have my opinions be shared, I have gotten pretty much all of my clients know my political leanings and my political background, and that's why they want to work with me. Not because they're running for office or because I'm helping them with politics, but because they know that's where my values are.
Right. They share the same values as you.
Exactly.
So is that how you kind of, like, in terms of knowing, say it's not even politics, but how much of your personal life is it okay to share with the public then? I guess that's where the line is, when it touches into values and there are stories there. Is there a general guideline, or do we just...
Yeah, I would say do what feels right to you. So, and as yoga teachers, your listeners out there, you know how much your body gives you cues about what you're feeling and what's going on. So if you are about to share something and it doesn't feel right, it feels like too much or feels inappropriate for the audience or for the setting, listen to those body cues. Now, you could have a little bit of fear, which is normal, but there's something else there that you can kind of just trust your intuition and know that it's not right. Now, also, I'm a big proponent that in whether you're speaking on a stage or you're just with a group of people, if you haven't processed whatever the event or the situation is yet, if you haven't processed that yourself, if it's still too emotionally raw for you, then it's probably not a good idea to share it, because the audience is not your therapy session. Your audience is there to learn the lessons that you've already learned because you've already processed it.
That makes total sense. I was thinking about this the other day when I went to teach a yoga class, and exactly that. I said one comment, we were doing a balance thing, and I was saying, this is reminding me of a little bit how I felt today, a little off balance, off kilter. But I wasn't ready to share the entire story of why that was, and that's exactly it. I was still in the midst of processing that. But I like my students to know that I'm a person who has bad days as well.
Yes, I think that was perfect, Shannon. You let them know you're human. You're not right. You're not a robot. The robots are coming soon enough. In the meantime, we're allowed to be human. To let them know, yeah, like some days I feel off balance. Some days things don't go all the way, or some days, I get ticked off about something. But you don't need to share for 10 minutes what happened.
Right. That's so helpful, Carol. Are there any other kind of tips or tricks you would share with yoga teachers listening today?
The biggest thing is to really be okay with who you are and with what the value is and the services that you bring to your students, to your audience, to whomever you're working with. Because especially when we're all online and we see what everyone else is doing and we feel like we're behind and we feel like we're not keeping up, and so seems so successful and I should be doing what that person is doing, but really get in touch with what your strengths are and what you personally want to do the most, and don't worry about what everyone else is doing.
That's beautiful. That's what we're aiming for with our students all the time. We're always telling them, really embrace who you are in this pose. Let go of looking around or comparing yourself and judging yourself and others. So
we all need to take our own advice.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Carol. And if people want to work with you further, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is speakingyourbrand.com. And remember, though, the best place is to go to that special page. So speakingyourbrand.com/connected yoga, because I have that free PDF there. And then there'll be a contact button where people can schedule a call with me if they like to talk. I like to talk to people in one-on-one so I can get a sense of what they're doing, what their goals are, and then how we could best work together.
That's fantastic. I also love how you share that with your podcast as well. And I'll put a link to your podcast because you do a lot of on-air coaching calls with people, and I really appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for having me. I really enjoyed your questions. You're a really good interviewer, so I really appreciated that, and also learning more about how you help your yoga teachers.
Okay, thank you. There you have it, Connected Yoga Teachers. I love how Carol tells us to embrace our personality, to really let this shine so that our ideal clients, yoga students, can see if our core message connects with their values. I also love how she gets into niching down, where she says niche. This is really my way of saying the word. I'm not sure if you say niche or niche. Let me know. But this niching down really means that we're not trying to speak to everyone, that we really connect with an audience. If you're interested in this niche work, I actually offer a course. It will be coming out in the fall. Make sure that you're on our newsletter and you'll hear about it there first. Carol asks us to start to look at what our journey into yoga was like, how that's shaped who we are today, what we were like as a young child. All of these questions, again, are in that PDF that Carol shared with us, and you can find that in our show notes. Also, if you're thinking about reaching out and speaking, Carol talked about reaching out to a women's business group, the library, healthcare providers. I started thinking more about community centers, moms groups. There are so many opportunities out there to get speaking in our own community. I'm actually going to start a post on this in the Connected Yoga Teacher private Facebook group. So come on over and join us in there and put your thoughts in there. To reiterate Carol's words, if your yoga message is for everyone, it really is for no one. I cannot stress this point enough when I talk with yoga teachers, and I know it's scary to niche down, but it has made such a difference in my own yoga business, and I'm excited to share that with other yoga teachers. The Connected Yoga Teacher has many resources for you, the yoga entrepreneur. We have a website, a podcast, a live show, and a community of other yoga teachers from around the world in our private Facebook group. Today's question in that private Facebook group was, what social media channels are you using for your yoga business? I see on there that Facebook is the most popular, followed closely by Instagram, with Twitter and LinkedIn much further down the list. If you want to see that or comment on that, head on over. The link is in our show notes. This Facebook group is for all yoga teachers. Yes, you can join if you're in your first yoga teacher training. And the goal for this group is to have a very safe and supportive place for yoga teachers to feel like they can ask questions. There are no dumb questions. And we like to keep the vibe in there really super community friendly, supportive. So to sign up for this free group, visit theconnectedyogateacher.com and click on the Join Our Online group. Also, just to offer a little sneak peek, I don't often do this, but I want to this week. We're going to learn from a social media expert next week about a platform that you might not be using that can really help you to stand out as a yoga teacher. That's episode 22, next Saturday. If you have found this podcast episode helpful, share it with a yoga teacher, maybe privately, maybe in a Facebook group, or post it on Instagram, talk about it on Snapchat. I'm not sure what your social media spot is. Maybe even write a blog about it. Especially if you haven't already, leave us a review in iTunes or on our Facebook page. Thanks so much in advance. This really means a lot. What also means a lot is just you taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen. I know some of you tell me that you're listening from your car, or you're listening while you're cleaning or gardening, and I just really appreciate your time. I'd like to share a couple of reviews that the Connected Yoga teachers have left. So Brittany Allred, thank you for your review, and also thanks for being on the podcast as a live consultation call. You can go back and listen to that in episode 18. Brittany says, Shannon is such a wonderful lady to work with. She is so patient and understanding of all the concerns I had while speaking with her. I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to chat one-on-one with her. And Erin, thank you so much for your review. Erin says, I had my initial consultation call with Shannon last week. I have to say I was drawn to her because of her calm and inspiring demeanor and all the work she has placed into the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook page and podcasts. After the 90-minute call, which did not feel nearly as long as I worried it might, I left with a number of ideas and practical applications for my yoga business. I also have a lot of work to do, but none of it seems overwhelming. In fact, it is all very timely and a natural progression for me and my business. Shannon has a lot of ideas, and I can't wait to continue working with her, as well as learning from the collective community she has created. Thank you so much. Those are really kind words, Erin. It's been a pleasure to work with you as well. I'm looking forward to seeing how things go for you in the future also. I need to send a shout out of thanks because the Connected Yoga Teacher has a growing team. So many thanks to Rob, our audio editor, Laura, our show notes author, and to Sean, my partner, who is just supportive beyond belief, even saying tonight, like, no, we can't watch The Big Bang Theory. You need to go make your podcast. He also might say to me, go make some time to do yoga. On that note, I need to tell you guys, I have found time to do yoga in the last few days, and I had fallen away from it for a bit, and it makes such a difference. And the biggest motivator for me this week, and maybe this will help you, is that I was listening to someone talk about something completely unrelated, saying that it's not the feeling going into it and not even the feeling during, it's the feeling afterwards. And so I have to think back. I have never finished a yoga practice and thought, well, that was a total waste of my time. I've always finished feeling really creative, refreshed, a little more myself, and a little more ready to take on the day. So if that helps to motivate you to find time for your own practice, I'm happy to share. So before I sign off today, let's look at how together we can really use this printable PDF that Carol shared and a call with Carol to help you create your own brand, or maybe a signature talk, or maybe just the wording for your social media page. All of this is in this story that Carol helps guide you through. Let me know how it goes. Share it in the comments section under the show notes or email me. You can find me at shannon@theconnectedyogateacher.com. So have an amazing week, you guys. Share the yoga that lights you up. Take care.